Hi, my name is Olufemi. I'm a real estate salesman. I buy, build, and sell real estate for myself and for investors. In this video, I'm going to just answer some of the questions that people ask about rental income. I was having a conversation with a colleague within the industry, and he told me that truly nobody has made much money from real estate. In fact, some people lose from real estate. And then he raised a very valid point, and I've seen the question over and over. I've answered some of them in my personal moment, and that is, why do we preach rental income when rental income is one of the lowest form of return on any asset that you buy? And their points might be valid. Let's take Nigeria. I'm speaking specifically about Nigerian real estate market today. If you buy a property of 250 million anywhere, you can predictably say that the rental income will probably be between 3 to 5%. That means you probably won't be able to get more than 7 to 12 million, in extreme cases 15. That is 15 million is about 6%. Meanwhile, if you take that same 250 and put it in federal government bond, it will actually provide you currently 20-something%. That is nearly times 4 of the potential rental return that you would find. So what is the benefit? What is the value of preaching rental return? That is the thing. Rental return, particularly in this local market, is a bit low. But what are the advantages, and why should you still do rental properties? Why should you still buy rental and invest in rental properties? The main reason, the number one reason, is beyond rental return compared to some other instrument. You have what you call capital appreciation. It means that capital appreciation, what it means is you buy the house for 250. Truly, you are earning between 6 to 15 million. But also, the property you buy at 250 over a period of time, let's say 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, could appreciate to 400 million, or let's even say very conservative 350 million. What it means is beyond the 6% that you are making over a 3-year period, you also made 100 million naira in value. 100 million naira in value probably is about roughly about 40% return over that period of time. So if you were to amortize that capital appreciation over that period of time, you will realize that what you're earning is significantly higher. That is number one. The other thing that I usually would answer is rental income is one of those predictable, I'm still going to say there's a caveat to it, of return that you could have. And this is why, because the return is solely within your control. If you invest in fixed income instruments, you could invest in treasury bill today that is pretty high, maybe 20-something or 17%. And then your treasury bills mature by next year. Once it matures, you want to reinvest your money, and the rates might be lower, much lower than before. There was a time rate was as low as under 5%. There was almost 10%, 12%, 30%. Today it's pretty high. But what we're sure is that the rate would also go down. So you do not have control or predictably of what the rate could be in the future. And that also happen across all asset class. The advantage your rental return has is that you can say that every 2 to 3 years, I want to increase the rent that on this my property. Of course, we expect you to also maintain that property. So you can say, I want to do a 10, 20, 30% review in terms of my rental income to keep up with inflation, to keep up with whatever it is, and then you keep raising it. And that's number one. Number two is rental return generally would increase over a period of time. So you bought the property 100 million 10 years ago, and then when you were doing that, you rented it out at 5%, which is just 5 million. That same property that is 100 million 10 years ago is probably worth about 400 or 500 million today. I'm not even talking about capital appreciation. That same 100 million that you invested 10 years ago, apart from the fact that the value is appreciated, your rent started at 5 million. Today, that same rent is about 20 million. That means if we're to look at what you invested at that time, not the current value, you're actually earning 20, 25, or 30%. I know that there's a property holder who bought the property about 6 or 7 years ago at 60 million and then started renting it out then at 3 million, 3 or 4 million thereabout. And today, that same property located somewhere in Lekki Phase 1 is actually renting out at about 12 or 13 million. What it means generally is the guy is earning about 14 million, because when we calculated, it was about 24% on the original, apart from capital appreciation. So what am I trying to say? That rental return might be a bit low on the immediate, but is one of those returns that you can guarantee and you can control. Come to think of it, people will say that what if there's vacancy? I won't be able to earn until it, which is why I generally encourage the investors who can afford it. You need to have multiple rental properties to reduce the risk of what you call the occupancy risk when it comes to rent. So you want to do that. So even if you have 4 or 5, even if one is empty, you know that that's a 20% reduction in your revenue. You still have 80% to go. So for me, the reason why I would continue to preach that is not just because I play within the industry, it's because it is one of the controllable revenue generating assets. You can predetermine what it will be. You can say, I'm going to review my rent every 2 years, and that happens, and say, okay, I want to do a 20 or 30 or 40%. For those of us who are within the rental property market today, you will notice that in the last 2 years, rent has generally increased by nearly 100 to, in some cases, more, 100%. And that is because property owners can say, this is what I want to do. Now, there are more nuances actually to rental income, but fortunately at the moment, Nigeria is very straightforward. If you were investing in a rental property outside the country, maybe in the US, there are a lot of fees that come with owning the property that you need to factor into your rent. And then beyond that, you know that you need to make provision for repairs. In Nigeria, as we know, the fees or the rate or the charges, the levies are not that much. And most times, even property owners actually expect that it is the renters that will repair, particularly for simple maintenance, only major ones that they call the landlord. And if you layer insurance on your property, you can further secure your asset. But let's come back to why we started this conversation. Rental income might look a bit lower compared to some of the other asset classes, but it represents a relatively safe return, cash return. Now we're not even talking about capital. When you layer capital appreciation, you're at par with most of the other set. Well, so it might be small, but it represents a relatively reliable and sustainable source of cash flow generation that you can predictably say every 10 years or every year, 2 years, every 3 years, I want to raise my rent by 20 or 30%, and then you can plan with that. I hope this has been of value. So go do rental properties, depending on what your investment goal is, depending on what your investment philosophy is. And if you don't understand what the investment philosophy is, you want to actually go look through our page. There's a video on how do you, what is investment philosophy and why successful investment managers or investors use it. I hope this has been of value. If it has been, kindly follow our channel across all the platforms, at Facebook at Kasafina Development or at Dr. Olufemi. Same for Instagram at Dr. Olufemi Sheyi, and then on YouTube at Kasafina TV. Thank you.